The fashion industry, like many others, has been revolutionized by advance in technology and new forms of delivering product and service to the customer. Here, we discuss the opportunities and threats of how large fashion and industry players need to adapt to satisfy the needs of their customers. Please welcome moderator Natalia Gamero, Frank Zayan, Lopo Champalimaud, and Sébastien Fabre.
So hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. Consumer behavior is shifting radically with the rise of e-commerce and new technologies. Today's luxury consumers are constantly connected, time-poor and craving for discovery. When it comes to fashion, they crave for newness. New images, new products, new things, and most of all, new experiences, and everything at a big speed. For most shoppers, omnichannel is already the norm. They no longer perceive barriers between the different shopping channels, be it in-store, on desktop, mobile, or Instagram. Over the next 5 years, the connectedness of the consumer will increase through elements like the Internet of Things and social commerce, challenging all of you retailers to capture consumers' non-linear journeys across channels. To discuss this complex but thrilling reality, I'm happy to welcome 3 leaders from the industry. To my left, Frank Zayan, president of Style.com, the first e-commerce incursion in Condé Nast's 107 years of history, under the umbrella of prestigious brands such as Vogue, Glamour, and GQ. Frank is an entrepreneur and expert in retail, e-commerce, and technology. Before joining Condé Nast, he was the Internet e-commerce director of the Galeries Lafayette Group and started and operated leading online shoe retailer Sarenza. Besides him, Lopo Champalimaud, serial entrepreneur, CEO, chairman, and founder of Treatwell, the leading online booking platform for hair and beauty in Europe. He now employs over 500 people around Europe with over 30,000 salons and spas, and more than 10 million people book his services in the platform. Before launching Treatwell, he was the marketing director of lifestyle at lastminute.com and the founder of 2 successful data and CRM startups. And at the end, Sébastien Fabre, a CEO and founder of Vestiaire Collectif, a fashion's favorite e-commerce site that connects buyers and sellers trading in second-hand personal luxury goods, like Hermès handbags, Chanel jackets, or everything you can imagine. Between the fashion experts, he is known for his unique catalog and 5 million shoppers around the world by Vestiaire Collectif. 1 year ago, he raised a 33 million round with participations from existing investors like Condé Nast. Well, after this, I thought it was going to be more brief, but you made so many things that you made it impossible. So, Lopo, Frank, Sebastian, I want to ask you about innovation. In many cases, innovation is related with making something easy that before was extremely difficult for the consumer. Could you tell me which ways did your businesses brought this kind of innovation? So?
Okay. So what we're building, Style.com, is a luxury commerce destination. And it's been created at the heart of Condé Nast. So our goal was basically to build that destination and try to imagine a way to connect the assets of the great brands Condé Nast carry, Vogue, GQ, Glamour, Wired, all of these brands, and build that bridge between editorial content, between what actually triggers the inspiration from the customer, from the consumer, and help them make the connection between that inspiration and a point of transaction. So we've been building that platform for the past year and a half. We just launched in the UK. We are about to launch in the rest of Europe and the US. So when we started thinking about the project, it was very clear that it didn't make any sense to build something very similar to whatever was out there and already working well. So we had to look at different angles. One of them, obviously, is leveraging the incredible content that Condé Nast creates and builds, and use that as a way to, again, inspire customers and help them make a decision. And the other very big piece that we've been working on over the past year has been a very, very complex recommendation engine. So this morning, there was a great talk about data. Everything we've built has been built on a very, very complex scheme of data so that we can learn how consumers use content and how they see the products, how they make that connection between the content and the product, and how the brands actually come together in a way that when we make a recommendation, we make recommendation based on brand adjacency, price adjacency, and so forth. So we've built a whole team for that to enhance the journey for the customer.
Thank you very much, Frank. Lopo?
So I guess our view on innovation was a little different from Frank's. So when we started Treatwell, originally was Wahanda, it was in 2008. And the way that everyone booked their hair and beauty appointments was to pick up the phone. And somebody on the other side of the phone wrote down a piece of paper and a pen the appointment, or you just walked in. And I thought that didn't make any sense. And so there was no one doing what we did. And so we were really, the innovation was to be the first company that tried to connect the consumer and the salons together. And what we were saying was that we saw that there was all this inventory and availability which sat at the salon, either on paper or in software that they were using, but it wasn't connected to the internet in any way. And so consumers couldn't see availability and they couldn't make choices. And so by making that connection, the innovation that you immediately enabled a lot of innovation. So for instance, for the first time, you could compare salons in your area based on availability. You say, I want a manicure, and you could see all the places that were available near you to do the manicure. You could compare on price. You could compare on time. You could compare on reviews. And that kind of transparency in this marketplace never existed before, because before, the only way a consumer could discover which salons to go to was to simply ask a friend or walk in. And so now you have this availability, say, I want to have a manicure. Oh, I didn't know that place was there. I didn't know they have availability, and I didn't know how they had that price. And the second piece of innovation that happens is one of the things I found really confused. I'd done, as you point out, a couple startups, and my prior business I'd worked with was with LastMinute.com, where I wasn't the founder, but I was part of that team when we sold it. And that business, one of the things we learned about travel was, you see that, and we're all used to this, is that the price of a hotel or the price of a flight changes depending on availability. And one of the things I found really hard about this industry, the hair and beauty industry, was, and the question we asked ourselves is, why does a haircut cost the same Monday morning as it does Saturday afternoon? It doesn't make any sense, you know? And so we set out to, and the reason for that is because it's not digital. And even if it was digital, there's no distribution, right? So by creating this connection, the other thing we've done is we've transformed this industry and introduced what we call yield management. So the ability for prices to fluctuate for services depending on the demand of that service through the week. And there's many more innovations you can go to, but the base of those innovations all come from that basic connection. The connection was the most important innovation.
So you're the Uber of beauty.
Some people call us the Uber Beauty, some people say open table of beauty, yeah. But a little different from Uber, because Uber controls the entire experience. Yeah. It's an Uber driver, an Uber car, an Uber experience. We don't try to do that. We clearly show you that this is the service being provided by this salon, by this person. So a little
Thank
bit
you,
different.
Lopo. So I would like to ask Sebastian, because I know that he created a trusted second-hand market for luxury, which in the past, I mean, would seem impossible. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
You know, in 2008, building a second-hand business on high-end and luxury was not an easy journey, honestly.
Is it now?
It's easier. But when I was at the airport in Paris 2 days ago, I mean, I saw a quote on the wall from Charles Darwin. Sorry for the translation. I'm the French guy here, so you can hear my accent. And it says it's not the strongest one or the most clever who will survive, but the one who will anticipate a change. And I think it's exactly what represents this industry. I mean, I'm a strong believer that disruption is not key. It's evolution that is key. And if you look at Vestiaire, I mean, back in 2008, I was really frustrated to have all this amazing supply sleeping in a wardrobe of people, you know, dead, without any activation. And I had in mind that I came from Microsoft, so the tech part is more, you know, on my side. And I was just wondering how we could activate that and put them on the market, because all these products are really inspirational. It's about emotion, fashion is about emotion, and I wanted to have it back on the market. And I've had this anecdote saying that back in 2008, a Parisian woman had 90 items on her wardrobe, and 51 is totally unworn. So, you know, this frustration, you know, brings you to think about how you can use technology, and technology, I mean, it's a simple thing. It's just user experience. It's your mobile. You take a picture of the clothes, and then it goes online. So it's easy as that.
Very interesting. I think we have a lot of entrepreneurs here in the audience, and they would love to hear some of the anecdotes that you have. Lopo, for example, when you face this hyper-fragmented beauty market owned by small owners of businesses that were not technology savvy at all, or you, Sebastian, I would love to know how were your first conversations with brands as Louis Vuitton. Now you have, I think the other day I saw it, more than 60,000 items from the brand. So how was it at the beginning for both of you?
Difficult. The story on Treatwell is I was actually looking. I learned one of the things I learned at lastminute.com was when I looked at there's an interesting analogy. The hotel industry for travel for online travel agencies is really, really good in Europe. It's not very good in the US. Okay, so travel agencies don't make a lot of money on hotels in the US, but they make a lot of money on hotels in Europe. And when I first understood that, I was really confused. I was like, why? It's the same business. Why is that so different between those two markets? And the reason is that in the US, the hotels are 80% owned by chains. And in Europe, they're 80% independent. And so because of the fragmentation in the market, the price that the travel agencies can commission, that the travel agencies can get in Europe is twice what it is in the US, which makes it a much, much better business. And so I took that lesson, and I was really looking for large fragmented markets. So and I had this idea, I was very focused on the local market, because one of the things I also thought was crazy at the time is the local services market in particular, which is huge, was very badly represented online. So I was looking more or less in this area. And then one day I was trying to I was working late. It was like 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night. I was walking home, and I wanted a massage for the weekend. And so I started doing a search on my BlackBerry and couldn't find anything. And so I find a website, and I can't book anything, so I send an email. And the next day, I don't get a response. And I forget about it. And then the next day passes, and I think about it again, and I call. And they said they're fully booked. And now I don't know where else to go, because that was the only place I could assume. So I kind of did some searches, found another place. And by the time this was done, I gave up. I never had that massage, right? And I thought to myself, this is just too hard. And that's what started. Now, this was 2008 when we launched, so it's very similar time Sébastien started his business. And I remember there was a Condé Nast editor at the time in 2008 after Lehman crashed. And he said, and I was begging for some PR, and she said, you know, Lopo, I can't write about you. I said, why not? I said, because Lehman crashed. No one's ever going to have their hair cut or colored again. and I was like, I walked away. I said, I promise you, women will let their children skip a meal before letting their roots show. And I kind of really believed that the world would come back, and it did. But you know, there's so many of these early stories about getting it started. But it's there was an idea of what I was trying to do, and then a personal problem that came up, and the two things kind of came together at once.
Extremely interesting.
Yeah.
What about you, Sebastian, with the luxury brands? How was it at the beginning?
I mean, you don't born as an entrepreneur. It's just one day you want to create your own story, and something is obvious to you, and you get into it. And I think back in 2009. I was invited by Condé Nast at a dinner. It was a GQ dinner, I think, in Paris. And I was close to someone from Dior, and during all the dinner, she was like, back. I was here, she was here, not looking at me, because she did not know how to address this, resale business. And so it's really about educating. And I think what is important for Vestiaire is that we are a player of this fashion industry. I mean, once more, I don't want to disrupt it. I'm really here to be a player, and in the sense that I think if you look at Vestiaire, if you don't respect the code of the fashion industry, it's not a win-win-win game, which is win for the seller, win for the buyer, but also win for the brand. And I'll tell you that. I mean, the second-hand market exists. On our site, we have 4,000 new products coming in on the site every day. We're growing at 70% year on year. So it exists. So if the key success factor is how you respect the code of the fashion industry to make sure that you're part of it. And for us, and I can explain the model, which is really simple. I mean, we have built a model with friction. So, when you meet investors, they say, okay, you want to scale, but you have friction, or is it possible? And I think for fashion, and especially high-end luxury fashion, you have to curate. You have to select the best catalog to make sure that you create velocity first. So we select. We reject 30% of the product upstream. And then 100% of the product goes and passes through our hands at what step of the process. We have 26% who authentify, certify the product, and make sure that we can send the product to the final buyer. We do that with brand and designer. We have signed anti-counterfeit charter with all the brand and designer. We work directly with brand who come to our office every quarter to train our team. And the funny about that is that we have millions of products who have circulated on our hands. So now it's us who train the brand sometimes, because they don't even have in mind what was their collection like 10 years ago. So we train about the product. For me, the main anecdote and the challenge is how you start a business, building the supply, but also financing the growth. And it's not an easy business. Back in 2008, there was the crisis. So you have to prove all the time that the business is scalable, that the supply is the right one, that the marketplace effect works. And 30% of my time is about discussing with investors. It's an ongoing process. We have raised 63 million euros so far, and it's a never-ending story, I can tell.
Congratulations. I'm very happy that you convinced the market that you were not completely crazy.
Well, so actually,
was a risk, eh?
It's a huge
risk.
Well, it's definitely a risk, and I think Sebastian and I have there's business. The business is similar in the sense that they're both marketplace businesses, and in this sector in 2008, it was really both fashion and beauty. There was a lot of resistance. I mean, the tech world is still dominated by men. And so when you come in and you want to talk about facials, they're like, I talk to my wife, and I can tell you stories that I've heard from investors, which were shocking to me. Like I was shocked by some of the things they said. And now the good news is the world's understood that fashion and beauty is a huge industry, lots of innovation come. But you know, but marketplaces, when you add dimension of marketplaces on top of that, those are things that those are difficult. Those are models that not everyone understands. You know, and yeah, they're special.
So now, Frank, I would like to ask you, according to Havas Looks Up, the consumer is ready to pay more if they are provided with an excellent experience. And on the other hand, they are craving also for contents, but not any contents, but content related with their tasters, their profile. How are you doing that in Style.com? What does it mean nowadays to provide a luxury experience for a retailer or
So
or a
usually
platform?
when we talk about the experience, it is often mixed with the level of service you'll get, how quickly the product will arrive, how easy it is to pay for the product, buy the product, and so forth. That is clearly, that's one of the elements of the experience. But there are also a lot of other elements. I mean, Sébastien talked about curation. Curation, in a way, is another word for making a selection and providing a selection for the consumer. So putting out pages, tens and hundreds of pages of products, one after the other, does not provide a very good experience. And this morning, there was a talk about how Amazon is doing in fashion, which is not great at this point. And I do think that, yeah, they have the best service in the world. You go to Amazon because it's synonymous of convenience and speed and so forth. But do you really want to buy your products on Amazon going through 35 pages of shoes? Well, that's a very big that's where content comes into play. That's where an editorial eye, that's where fashion direction comes into play. That's where curation comes into play. Providing something to a customer that's relevant for the customer going through your site is absolutely key to creating that incredible experience. So we obviously at Style.com, we rely a lot on the content that we get from the magazine, Vogue presenting you a trend, a style, a brand, a type of product, dress, or fashion, or else, actually. And because of the credibility of that content, it really helps consumers go through the offer. And we're actually, in a way, making some decisions for the consumer and not showing pages and pages of product, but creating a curated offer, a curated set of assortment with a combination of very strong technology that actually creates the merchandising of the pages, on which we add a very strong human curation, so that the algorithms, little by little, get better at what they do. So the experience is really connecting all the dots, making sure that you are where the consumer wants you to be or needs you to be in that journey, right at the point of inspiration. We talked about the magazine or the websites that talk about product and fashion and lifestyle. We want to be there. We want to build that connection with the product and the assortment and the brands that we sell and all of that. And eventually all the way to the store. If someone, and again, Style.com is a marketplace. So when we sell a product and the brand has the ability to deliver that product to the consumer in one of their stores, we'd be really happy to do that. We don't need to control that whole chain. We just want to provide an experience, a journey to the customer that's relevant to their expectation, and that in many cases is better than when they expect. So we try to anticipate that. So you can go from the pages of Vogue to Style.com to the Gucci store and get the product in the store if you want to get in the store. So really, it is try to connect all the dots together and making that journey as simple as rewarding for the customer as possible.
It's very interesting. We talk a lot in the newsroom about the right balance between the poetry and the data, which in all of your business you need poetry, but you also need data. Until what extent you combine both of them, not only in your product strategy, but also in your staff. I understand that you would have a lot of engineers and also a very cool fashion editor that was the other day at the Instagram,
Yeah.
like as a rising star. So I would like to ask you that. What is your balance between poetry and data?
Poetry is very important, and data is very necessary. So what we've built is if we put the poetry inside editorial content, people with an eye. You want to sell lifestyle products, you want to sell fashion. It's not just about listing pages of products. It's about explaining to people, presenting to them in a way that makes it almost compelling for them to go further and look at the product. That is absolutely key. But again, we live at a time when, and for the first time really, where we can leverage the power of data in a very, very different way. So I do not think that at this stage today, technology alone allows fashion recommendation engines to be very powerful, which is why we need to combine that with people who really know fashion, who really know the product, who really know the texture of the products, and you make them work together at the same time with the editors, with the fashion directors, creates a miracle.
I think for you, Sebastian, is similar. You told me with like the mix of talents you have at your office.
Our algorithm is based on the fact that the more social interactions you have around product on the site, the faster you sell as a seller, and it's 99% correlation. If you take brands on the site, I mean, second-hand is not just pushing a catalog of old products, it's a lifetime for a product. So we understand who is the seller, what's his size, who is living, where he's living, sorry, what he wants to buy, what he has put in the wish list. And we use it only for us, and the way the site is merchandised is really around that. But I think when it comes to fashion, it's me. I let the team use data because they can curate and merchandise with it. But the end of the journey is really about their intuition and their knowledge in fashion. So, for example, I can give you many examples. Let's say, look at the weight of vêtements in this industry. I mean, it's sometimes for someone who is not coming from fashion, it's a bit strange. But I mean, look at the impact of vêtements on Champion, for example, the brand Champion, because they collaborate. And then, I mean, on our site, data or on our algorithm, they couldn't do anything with that. If someone in the team just understand where is the trends going, I mean, they can articulate the site in a way that it makes sense to someone who loves fashion. And it's exactly what I think. So 50% of the job is data, understanding the catalog, organizing, and then the end of the journey is intuition and knowledge about that. And sometimes we make mistakes, and I like it, honestly.
Okay, so we are living exciting times in the industry. A lot of things are happening. YOOX has bought Net-a-Porter. Fashion unicorn Farfetch has bought Browns in order to test omni-channel experiences. So I would like to ask you briefly, we have 2 minutes, I think. What models will prevail? We have this discussion between platforms and wholesale. What models will prevail in the future? Lopo, would you like to start?
I don't think there's a model that prevails. I think there's lots of different. I think in all these industries, they're large industries, and the consumer has various needs, demands, and I think there's probably room for in each of these models multiple ways of existing and surviving and being successful. I think the point about Sebastian made about evolution and about being constantly innovating and to adapt the fastest is really important. You know, our model today. You know, you asked about. I'll give you an example. You know, when we started Treatwell, the model was completely uncurated at all levels, right? We let the salons put up any pictures they want. write anything they want. Everything was controlled by them. What we've happened to us is we've discovered that actually the consumer, even though we did it because we wanted the consumer to be able to see what the salon was like. Like we didn't want to fake what, you know, or make it look better than it was, right? And so if they made spelling mistakes, that was okay. And I think opening up, what we've tried to do is we've now become more curated though, as we've gone along, right? And so it's a constant evolution. I think you learn from the data and the results you've got, and I think you just got to keep changing. But I don't think there is a model per se.
Okay. Very, very briefly, 24 seconds. Well, let's try something. Frank, Sebastian, briefly, what do you think will the future bring?
Well, I think we're seeing today, you know, a sort of trend that has started quite a few years ago, and that's that combination, that mix of different contact points. So we don't live in a world of retail and e-commerce anymore. We live again in a world of commerce, but which is very different from what it was 5 years ago. And it's a completely omni-channel commerce where you really try to connect every possible way to give more information, give more recommendations to your consumers.
Great, thank you.
Can I do it even if it's 0?
You are in the 0 seconds, so, well, but I think they will let us. Yes, briefly.
Very briefly. I mean, second-hand is it's part of the cycle. I mean, the more products sold in the boutiques, the more product landed on the second-hand marketplace. The more products sold on the second-hand marketplace, the more money you have to buy your product in the boutiques. So we are in this cycle, and I think it's really that, and it's featured by editorial. I think people need influence, and fashion is about an emotional lift. I mean, you follow influencers. We saw this morning.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
They deserve a big applause. Thank you.